Get my podcast blanket on.
Yeah, I'm starting to record because I realized if I'm going to be funny, I should be recording.
Not funny for free.
That's right. Got to get that check from old Audible.
We got our Casper mattress promotion. We're ready. Adam and Eve. That would be the perfect.
Yeah, actually, why don't we have a sponsorship from like a religiously themed sex toy website? That would be great.
That's the perfect one, actually.
Yeah, Adam and Eve.
I'm actually
a
little offended. Yeah, why don't you at me?
Also, like our fan base, I know some of these people. They're buying butt plugs, so like we could actually raise some. That'd be a good sponsorship across the board.
Yeah, honestly, Adam and Eve, where all y'all at? Y'all still doing good? Hit us up.
You're sleeping on this.
Yeah, BibleBoy666@gmail.com. We're open to sponsorship opportunities. All right, let's do our clap thing, and then we can get started. We all got time at is up.
So I just pictured the idea of a promotion called the Bible Boys to save you 66%.
That'll be pretty good. And then we could each get like a special object, like one of us would if we were getting
Aaron, what are our objects?
Well, for me, it's whatever you when you have a partner who has a vagina and you want to peg your partner who is a man. That's what you get from me.
Did you just need a strap on? Like, is that?
That's what I mean. I forgot.
Okay.
About that.
Oh my god.
You can tell,
but it's cross-shaped.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Yeah. Oh my god. The idea of us treating Adam and Eve like an indie bookstore where it's got little reviews by us.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is what happened when the McElroys were sponsored by Extreme Restraints, is that like they would get like a little notification every time somebody used one of their promo codes so you could see what their audience was buying, and it's like, oh, great. I want that for our audience.
But our audience gets that for us. Like whenever we buy from there, they're notified.
Yes, 100%. Oh, also that, yes. It's just like a newsletter of our sex lives.
Jesus Christ, this is the 15th fleshlight Aaron's bought this month. What's he doing to them? Alright, at least we're gonna clap at some point.
Oh, nobody else is gonna talk about their sex thing. Cool, anyway.
No, that's...
I bared my butthole for you all, and now... Interesting.
It's just another Tuesday for me, so...
That's fair.
It's not funny when Michael says it, because he does it when we don't bring up the bit.
That's true. This is our cold open. Let's clap at
this is our
21. Welcome to Bible Boys, a podcast where two ex-evangelical siblings and an ex-Catholic non-sibling watch Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
I'm Michael.
This week, we embark on a mission to the Great White Way as we watch the Book of Mormon. Before we have a protracted conversation about satire, please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, like and comment on our video, and follow us on Twitter at The Bible Boys. So we've been on hiatus for a little bit. So thank you all for being patient with us. Y'all want to talk about, what you've been up to?
Yeah, I got a big boy job. I actually make a living wage now. But that also means I have to work more than 40 hours a week.
Yay.
I've had almost the opposite experience. I've been traveling just about anywhere you can imagine, having the hot girl summer we should all have. So yeah, it doesn't leave a lot of time. However, my trip to London actually inspired this episode.
So we can thank the Brits for this one, huh?
So, here's the thing. I think all three of us watched different musicals.
I think we did.
So...
yeah, almost certainly.
Michael, I'm assuming you did not watch another version of this to prep for this episode. You're just going off of your memory of the 2022, I guess 21, it probably was in 21, London run, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. Interesting, interesting. For my part, I found a YouTube rip of the 2014 Broadway run with Ben Platt, famously of Dear Evan Hansen fame.
Also, My Bad Place Fake Soulmate.
Who is that?
Ben Platt?
I think it's a different Ben Platt. I'm almost certain.
That's who I listed as my Bad Place.
Yeah.
Soulmate.
Yeah. Josh, do you want to explain what you did?
Yeah, so if you don't give me instruction, I'll figure it out on my own because I have anxiety. And I think if I ask Aaron 2 questions in a row...
I had the links ready.
If I ask Aaron 2 questions in a row, he'll hate me. So I did my due diligence, and I pieced together this musical through multiple different run-throughs of it. So from each song and each scene, there were different actors and different things going on. I'm pretty sure I got it all.
Yeah, so this is going to be a rough one.
So this is going to be very interesting, and I'm actually kind of grateful for this because there were some pretty substantial and serious rewrites that happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually, that was actually my pitch for this because for those of you who don't know, was it 2020 or 2021? I believe it was in 20. Okay, in 2021, the creators came together with the original and then basically every Black actor who has been involved in this and rewrote pretty significant parts. So it was July 2020 when it first happened, where the Black actors from the original and current cast signed a letter saying that when the show returns, all of our work will be viewed through a new lens. And the team actually came together with the New York cast, did a 2-week workshop, and reviewed basically everything to see that the satire was understood and that there was just a little bit more of a steady hand with discussing some of the issues here. And some of them land, some of them don't. But my understanding is the 2014 version and the 2021, 2022 version are different enough that, like, there are original cast members who actually returned to the play based on the changes that happened.
Yes. To put this in, to rate this, to give this a numerical, empirical value, when I asked Michael how racist was the Book of Mormon that he saw, Michael said this was a 5 out of 10. The version I saw was a solid 8 out of 10.
I would argue that mine was right up there as well. When I first watched it, my reaction was, did Michael go to London and become racist? Did they get him while he was over there?
England will do that to you, unfortunately.
Well, that's like, we'll get to some of the specific instances, but even when I was watching it, the reason I gave it a 5 is I was like, wow, if one actor missed one beat in any moment of this, I would not understand that we're all laughing at the same thing, which is the white savior and, like, the perceptions from that perspective. Mm-hmm. Like, literally one person misses a beat. My understanding is that was not true prior to 2021, so...
No.
Absolutely fucking not. And we'll talk about satire. But yeah, do we want to start getting into it? Like setting up the characters and story?
Yeah, I can explain the plot and just kind of give, like, a broad overview here. So
Aaron and I can pop in and just be like, well, not always. That wasn't always what it was.
Yeah, and like I think this is super interesting conversation about art and its evolution and kind of like the unique capability of musicals because they're touring to like be a bit more agile. So we're opening with a song that's going to get stuck in your head for the rest of your life called Hello. And we are introduced to our protagonist, Kevin Price. And he thinks that if he prays and is good and does everything that a good Mormon should do, he's going to go to the land of his dreams for his mission, where he'll knock on doors and try to convert people to Mormonism. And the land of his dreams, the promised land in this, is none other than our very own Orlando, Florida. And, well, God answered his prayer, but gave him a no. So he is sent with Arnold Cunningham, a very fascinating character that I have some thoughts about. They go to Uganda.
Real quick, super important. Who was Cunningham for you guys?
My Cunningham is Ben Platt.
Mine was Josh Gad.
Yeah, that's the original. Yep. You can tell, right? That's the role written for Josh Gad. Yeah. This guy sounds like Olaf.
He really does. Mine was a actor, Tom Zander, in London, and he's been in some like BBC shows. I thought that he brought a charisma to the role that really kept it from being too one note, but I thought the writing made it very easy to be one note. And so basically Price is singing, hey, guess what? I am awesome, and it is my job to save people, and I'm destined for great things. And if you come with me and sit down and shut up and don't really get in my way, everything's great. And Cunningham is just kind of happy to have a pal. Like, it's clear, like, in the version I watched, like, every one of the Mormons were, like, Twinkie looked like Sean Cody models, and then this guy is, like, a little bit on the bigger side, being like, hey, don't forget about me. So it's clear that he hasn't been included in this. So they go to Uganda, and we are met with a scene of why I can never give this anything lower than a 5 on the racism, because they land and they get robbed by soldiers of a local warlord, and I'm not making this up, General Butt-fucking Naked.
Do you know what his original name in the first draft of the script was?
I know it's a lot worse.
It's Coney.
Oh my fucking god!
Yep.
Jesus Christ, y'all.
Huh?
So that's you know what? Butt fucking naked is not my favorite joke in this. I think it gets stale extremely fast. I guess I'm glad they made that change early on.
The idea of two middle-aged white men coming up with like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if it was Coney? Makes me want to shoot myself.
So they're robbed. They're met by the like village leader, and they're kind of met with like the realities of day-to-day life. And they're given this phrase, a kind of like Hakuna Matata-esque beginning here.
Explicitly so.
Yes.
Yes. But it translates to fuck you, God. And it is maybe, I think, the funniest song, because watching these, like, you know, pretend Mormon actors be shocked when the villagers are sticking their middle fingers up to God is beautiful.
Now, I struggled with that song. Mostly because they listed all of the ways why it's bad to live in Uganda, and all of the ways why it was bad to live in Uganda were just some of the most racist stereotypes you've ever heard. I believe that song ended with the individual giving them a tour threatening to give them AIDS.
Yes. Here is my daughter. She has a wonderful disposition. She's all I have left in the world, and if either of you lays a hand on her, I will give you my AIDS. Other jokes about AIDS. Let's see. 80% of us have AIDS. There's a joke that's maybe not in this song, but maybe before this song, and I guess we should probably put this here right now. Content warnings for sexual assault and necrophilia and pedophilia, racism, obviously.
Just about anything.
Listen, it's the fucking South Park guys. But he's like, oh, well, I wanted to rape a baby to get rid of my AIDS. And it's like, oh, So this is, and Sierra was watching the first half for me. She bailed out on the second half because she was like, "This is not funny," and I was like, "That's fair." But she was like, "Oh, is this like the peak of dead baby jokes?" And I was like, "Oh, that's probably it, right? This is the extreme edgelord, like early 2010s version." I just for the fucking sake of it, I looked up the fact 7% of people at this time, of people in Uganda at this time, are living with AIDS. So like it is a or HIV, not even AIDS, right? That there's a distinction. As somebody who is about to return to the field of STDs, specifically within HIV intervention, I want to get that right. Listen, I think that the "fuck you God" is actually an extremely funny joke when they set it up for the first time, but then the rest of the song, I was like, oh, it's getting progressively more racist.
And that's like actually a theme here, is that like the minute you feel like you can unclench and like relax and laugh, you're like, you just didn't land that plane, and you stepped right in the racism.
Which is also kind of the point, right? This is, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, or whatever, maybe the names are reversed, I don't care. Their whole, shtick was like, oh, we're an equal opportunity, we're offensive to everyone. This is like, when conservatives are like, liberals get so offended by everything, they're fucking snowflakes. Like, this is the kind of thing that they think, offensive means. That when you see offense, when somebody tells a joke about, assaulting a baby, right, then it's like, oh, well, you just can't handle, why can't you take a joke? And it's like, well, I don't know that that's right. What do you expect the reaction to be when we call something offensive, right? And like, the reaction is like, well, it's not really that funny. I think it's just like very lazy writing. And that's unfortunately going to be a theme here, as you're saying, Michael.
Yeah, and like there are some really funny moments in this, and I'd be lying if I said that there weren't moments that did make me laugh out loud. But they are often punctuated with moments like this where I'm like, oh, you just didn't have to do that. Or like, if we're going to be very, very generous, and I don't know that it's earned that we are, but if the intent is to satirize what these like very, there was like a scene in the one that I watched with like a Lion King performance by one of the church members. And it was very clear that they were satirizing, like, this is what these white people think that they're getting into. And if it was more like, hey, can you believe those white kids believed the shit that we just told them? That could be made explicit. And I think that would be a funnier joke of like, they literally didn't even think twice of the shit that we just told them. And we're all lying to them because it's fun to, like, haze the newbies. But that was never a thing.
I think this would be way fucking funnier if they got off the plane and they're like, oh my god, this person needs our help. And the person was like, what the fuck? I'm an accountant. What do you want from me? Like, I have a job. I'm going to it. Do you want anything from the pharmacy? Like, you don't have to paint all of an entire nation or continent in the exact like idea that people already have of it, and then go like, oh, white boys out of place here, white little nerds. I don't know. This one, I will say, I'm going to be very mean to this musical. There is one song that I think is very funny. I'll bring it up when we get there. We're not there yet. There is one song that is extremely humorous.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally fair. So then we get into the like actual Mormon group, and we're introduced to Elder McKinley, who is gay. I find this character very interesting as well. Again, I was like, oh, like we had to have one of them. I think that that's just necessary in a story like this. And he sings a song called Turn It Off, where it's like, just suppress your bad vibes, which is maybe the most like American Christian thing I've ever heard. So they go to bed. Price is still really upset about being in Uganda and not in Orlando. Cunningham's like, no, we're in this together. So Price is like, okay, we can start converting the villagers. So he starts teaching them about Joseph Smith. and sings a song, All American Prophet, which is supposed to be about Joseph Smith, but is really about Price. And I love this, like, clear, flawed protagonist. Like, it to me is one of the things I like most is that they seem to pull the fewest punches when they're talking about their protagonist. Like, it seems like, in my opinion at least, like, there's not a single punch pulled for Price in any of this. Like, we know he is selfish, he has a white savior complex, he has a god complex, and I find that the exact kind of protagonist I want for a comedy, personally.
I mean, I think you nailed it with that. I mean, he sings a song called You and Me, in parentheses, but mostly me. This is also the song I was talking about. All American Prophet. I did chuckle.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about, and every single form of religion has this, and like, I don't want to insult people for having beliefs in the Mormon church. There is something funny about, darn it, I couldn't show him the golden plates before I died. Darn it. They got me. That really made me giggle.
Yeah, and then, again, because, we got our funny quota, well, guess what's coming next?
Racism.
Of course. And audience, you're going to just really get used to that. So the general comes in and he's like, hey, guess what? We need to have female genital mutilation. And a villager's like, no. And then the general kills him. And this is just like a bad vibe. So the village leader takes his daughter and he's like, you've got to stay in the house. You've got to lock the doors and windows. You got to stay in. And she fights him. And I find, like, my understanding is the rewrites of her character are some of the more, like, agency-giving ones, because she's like, no, the women don't need to stay in hiding if we listen to the missionaries. They've got the secrets. Why don't we try this? We haven't done this, like, definition of insanity. Let's go. And she talks to the villagers and then says, hey, look, it made me feel good when Price said something about an earthly paradise and dreams of going to, like, a promised land. And they're like, wait, we can go somewhere better? Love that. Let's check this out.
I just want to say the song where they sing about how everything is beautiful and perfect in Salt Lake City, like, it did get a couple chuckles out of me as well.
It is just a funny scene. And so the mission president is like, hey, what's up? And Price is like, I'm actually out of here. I saw someone get shot. I want to go to Orlando. And Cunningham is like, I'll come with you. And Price is like, go fuck yourself. I'm going to Orlando. But then Nabulungi comes to him and is like, can you teach me about the Book of Mormon? And he's like, actually, yes, I can. And this is where we're going to embark on the wild, wild story of Cunningham's take on the Book of Mormon.
Oh, and
also, that's the end of Act 1.
Get this, the South Park version of I'll Make a Man Out of You.
Mm-hmm.
The idea, because the song begins, Cunningham Man Up. It begins with him being like, what did Jesus do right before he died? That's right, he manned up and then got crucified. And the idea of the idea of Jesus manning up to get crucified is really funny. It's not about love, it's not about, like, like, protecting those you care about. Is that you're not weakling.
Yeah, and they do make a lot of connections about how American this particular religion is, and this is one of those moments that I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. So now we're going to begin Act 2. The villagers are really bored with Cunningham reading directly from the Book of Mormon because he's never taught a class before. So he decides, you know what? I am going to do a little something called writing fan fiction. So we get all sorts of different people in his stories. So he is like blending in Lord of the Rings and Star Trek and Star Wars and all these different things into the Book of Mormon. And we get this song about him making things up because he's a compulsive liar, where his conscience is Joseph Smith and hobbits and Yoda. And it's just like really a strange scene. And this kind of feels like where I went, oh, okay, like this is the point of this, is, blending these stories together. And it was very strange. And then we get a nightmare sequence, which is my favorite thing.
Yeah, I think this is by far the best song in the musical.
Oh, by far. And this is the one where I think like they touch down on satire most clearly.
Yes.
I think. So Price is in Orlando and he's like, amazing. But then his dad is like, did you leave Cunningham? And he has a nightmare where he sees Jesus, Satan, Genghis Khan, Jeffrey Dahmer, Adolf Hitler, and Johnny Cochran. And it's really funny. It's really funny. It's really strange. And it really does feel like, okay, we're trying to get the trains back on the track here. And what better to do that than like a ridiculous sequence with like dancing coffee cups?
Yeah, I really like it. I think it has a lot. It reminds me a lot of the sequence from the musical Pippin, Glory, which is very similar in like it's a big battle scene and it's like talking about hell and like how war is hell, whereas this is just like devils chasing around Price and there's just like a lot of like hell imagery and it's very fun. And I think you're right, it does kind of get the musical back on track, being like, okay, let's do the A plot again and like reestablish Price's motivations and kind of undercut his whole like ideology and beliefs and be like, oh, this is actually what he's afraid of and this is what he actually cares about. The song's kind of a banger. The dance sequence from the shaky camera that I was able to see seemed pretty good. Seemed like the set was pretty nice. The lighting was impressive. I liked it quite a lot.
Now, this was a standout for me. Like, this was I think at this moment is where I, like, had consistently been going and, like, weighing our pros and cons and just landed on, I think this has, to spoil my own rating, a few more pros than cons, even though the cons are so evident, because it just seemed to get something about satirizing religion in a way that felt like it was threading a needle and like talking about an experience that if you grew up religious, you probably have had.
I don't want to spoil my rating either, but I think that I would enjoy this much more if I could watch it all in one take.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I'll try to keep
only there
that.
is someone who could have given you a link that would have allowed you to watch it all in one take.
But I'd already asked you a question, so that would have been the second question, which would mean you would hate me.
You're killing me.
Yes, and you had famously asked me 0 questions.
Yeah.
So Cunningham is like converting all the villagers, and he announces to his crew like, hey, guess what? I'm doing it. And McKinley's like, yeah, but like, what about the general? And Price is like, wait, I can redeem myself. So he decides to confront the general and convert him and sings this whole song. And the general's like, this is boring. I've heard this before, and drags him away. Cunningham starts baptizing people with a scene where it's really insinuated that Nabulungi and Cunningham have sex in the song Baptize Me. It's a very, very sexual song, and I feel like even if they don't, conflating baptism with sex is like just a really, it's like this like sacrilegious humor that you just don't think they're going to go there. And at least in the one that I saw, it felt again, like I kept feeling like we were dangerously close to skidding off the road, and we would like jerk back into place. And I don't know if that was true before, because again, I've only seen this version in person in the year 2022.
I mean, I thought they did do the sex joke thing. I thought it was like the thing about the South Park writers, right, is that they have an audience. They know what their audience is, and they have a built-in audience. So they kind of lean on that the audience kind of knows what they expect them to laugh at. It's sort of like having a laugh track in a sitcom. It's like, okay, you're conditioned to find something funny, right? There's definitely bits in the parts of the musical where somebody will say a line and deliver it exactly like Eric Cartman does, and the audience laughed. It's like, they're doing the Cartman joke, and that's why it's funny. In this one, it's just like they're doing the joke about how it's a sex thing, and I feel like it kind of shows the insecurity of the writers, and that they make the same joke an entire song, and like I think there is actually a way that you could probably do a take on baptism that's like, baptism is like a very, especially you can conflate baptism with losing your virginity in a way that is interesting. I just don't think they have the chops for it. I think they're just like, hey, it's, yep, I'm wet with sacraments or whatever. I don't know what the fucking line was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair.
It was, I just think it's kind of the same joke over and over again, which is, there's another bit where they talk about how the doctor has maggots in his scrotum, and they do that joke like 4 different times throughout the musical, including at the very final line. And it's just like, I think these guys are insecure about their jokes, so they have to do the same ones over and over again. And that's like a little bit embarrassing.
And just a reminder, if you, audience member, want to get wet with sacrament, make sure to go on to adamandeve.com and use promo code BibleBoys. That's what we call a callback.
If only. Yeah, like, I don't know. I think that one in particular was a joke where I was like, why didn't you just sandwich it? Give it in the beginning, call back at the end, and like, that's enough. Right? Like, I did not laugh out loud either, like, any of the time that was made, but like, that feels like choppy, like, I'm aware, I remember that thing I wrote, I remember the people I got with it, and let me hook you back in. So then we get the scene where I feel like it's pretty clear that the rewrite benefited the show. And that is the I Am Africa song. Because every review I have read prior to the year 2021 is like, this doesn't really land the plane. And in the one that I watched, in every subsequent review talks about this song in terms of, oh yeah, they are like making the white savior thing like explicit, not implicit, where you are literally like shuffling people out of the way to say, I am Africa, we are Africa, centering the white actors in a way that feels like in on the joke. Like, they're like, look how bad this is. Unfortunately, this is followed up by something I really, really don't like, so I'd love to...
Yeah.
So there's a common trait in media where, especially with South Park, in general, sexual assault is used as a punchline, but specifically if it's sexual assault involving a man, it's just a gut buster. It's so funny. It's just, woo. And if you can tell by my voice, I just think it's the funniest thing ever. And we get that where Price has the Book of Mormon put up his butt by the general. And, that's just it's a funny little thing to make fun of, because, haha, man.
This might be the appropriate time to confess something to my castmates.
So scared what the next words out of your mouth are going to be.
I've never seen a full episode of South Park in my life.
Oh, neither have I. I don't think anyone should.
I used to be really into South Park. Probably does not surprise a lot of people, longtime listeners of the show. Yeah, like I would like watch live or like new episodes as they aired.
Aaron, I like you as a person, and
yeah,
I think you're a good guy, and I think that you and Sierra are awesome together. How she had a talent for, like, looking through some flags that were bright red.
I mean, I wasn't, like, a South Park guy. I wasn't, like, quoting South Park to people, but, like, I was like, oh, this is funny. This is what satire is. And as I got older and met more people and understood more things about the world, I was like, oh, it's not really funny if you're punching down as much as you punch up. Like, then it's just kind of MMA. You're just punching, right? And I was like, okay, this isn't very funny anymore. But yeah, like when I was in like middle school and like early high school, I was like, oh, this is peak humor. But also I was in middle school and high school, like around the time that, this kind of humor and Book of Mormon came out in 2011 when I was in high school, and I was like, oh yeah, like this is the time that Trey Parker and Matt Stone were at their peak, right? So it says as much about them as like the culture that this was sort of like considered widely accepted as a phenomenal musical. I believe they've won. I don't know if they won any Tonys. Let me check really quick. Awarded 9 Tonys.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh my god!
Tonys? What the fuck?
9.
Do we have any?
9.
So
Real
yeah.
quick, did we win a Tony yet?
It seems like we should have, just by sheer statistical coincidence.
Right?
No,
yeah, if that tells you anything about what the culture was like back in the day, right? Like, it was
also,
a different
back
time.
in the day, 11 years ago.
Yeah, like right, the fact that this changed so much immediately after 2020, right? That should tell you enough about where American society has shifted. Like, I know that my cultural like touchstones and beliefs have shifted a lot because of the racial uprisings of 2020, right? I definitely had different politics after that, and I still have very the politics of 2011, Aaron, are very different than the politics of 2021, Aaron. And I think I'm probably a pretty good barometer of where like average middle class white like America is, right, throughout my life, because that's just kind of who I am, despite the fact that I'm also not a white person.
You were saying that, and I was like, I cannot wait for the representation meeting where they're like, all right, send out the representative of the white man middle class.
Listen,
hey, I'm for you, man. You miss all the shots you don't take.
Call me Uncle Tom, baby.
You are not Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, no, fuck Clarence Thomas. We don't have time to get into it. Please continue.
No. So Price decides to do what many of us also would do in 2021. He decides to drink his feelings, but with coffee. So Cunningham finds him and is like, we need to act like companions because the president's coming. And Price is like, the church, my parents, friends, life has like just broken every promise. I've really been let down. I've been promised all these things and I'm not living up to it. And like, this is another one where I can kind of see what the intent was of trying to land this plane of like, the general's literally coming to like mutilate people and kill them, and this white boy is like, I didn't get to go to Orlando.
There is something very beautiful about that being like almost the A plot.
Yeah. So Navalungi and the villagers perform a pageant for the mission president. And it's something. So we hear about Joseph Smith, the American Moses, and it is all about Cunningham's lies, such as having sex with a frog to cure AIDS. And there's talks about Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all the things. The mission president is just like, what the fuck? And he's like, all of you missionaries need to go home, and says to the villagers, you're not actually Mormons. And then Navalungi curses God for forsaking her, and like what I thought was just quite the standout performance by the actress I saw in person. Like just her singing voice alone was just so powerful here.
I agree. In the performance I watched as well, it was like the only moment that even got me remotely emotionally. I was like, you shouldn't be able to pull this out of me after all the shit that I've just watched. But I think for my performance, it was, Saisha Mercado, who played Namalungi. And she did a great job. Phenomenal singer. Easily the best singer in the cast. It was wild that the Yase Niba Ibolai song reprise was the standout moment, but whatever. Yeah. That's how musicals go, I guess.
Leanne Robinson was the one I saw, and just icon, legend, like stole the show in so many things. So Price realizes, wait, Cunningham had a point. It's very important that people get the messages of stories. You know, like, he's inspired by this guy that talked a lot in the Bible, like, just so much, and loved to tell stories, and he called them parables, and, like, they weren't really true.
Paul.
And Price has this epiphany of, like, wait, maybe it's a good idea to share the stories of my beliefs through stories. Because he was clearly the first person to think about that. So the general comes, Nabalungi is like, tells the villagers Cunningham is a liar, and she says, but you know, it's fine because the lion ate him. And the villagers are like, we knew these were metaphors. Like, do you think we're dumb? We obviously know that there's not a Death Star. And it was just such a, like, sweet moment of, again, I was like, oh, I could almost feel where, like, the actors were like, no, let's get textual here. Let's make sure that we say this. Like, that we're not just believing the bullshit.
So here's the thing. That moment's in the version that I watched too. Beautiful.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's earned at all.
Oh no, not even one little bit. It was one of those turns where I went, okay.
Totally. See, like, I don't think there was ever a moment that they tipped their hat onto whether they fully believed or not. They were just kind of like listening to the stories and then asking questions. So I kind of was like, okay, like, it's totally fine if they don't believe. But I'm very willing, especially in musicals, to just, like, suspend all disbelief and take the information you give me. Especially Act 1 or Act 2. Whatever happened in Act 1 was just a warm-up. You could lie to me the whole time. And I'm like, all right. It's somehow the least critically I consume media, because if a movie does that, I get very upset. So Price and Cunningham arrive, and it's like, wait, Cunningham is resurrected. And what I really like about this is Navalungi actually scares off the general and rallies the villagers and is like, hey, we got this. And she ends up saving the day. And I was very appreciative of that. And again, apparently that's a pretty new one.
Yeah, I think it's Price and Cunningham in the original, right?
Yes, 100%. It's Price hyping up Cunningham, and then Cunningham going, you know, if you fuck with us, then what's his name? Holy Father's gonna unleash the Kraken and shoot Joseph Smith torpedoes from the mouth of Christ and turn you into a lesbian. And that's, I don't know if I assume the same joke was used.
Similar.
Yeah.
There's a few things that were shifted around. Like, there was not the lesbian joke.
Okay, yeah.
So,
see, that's the quality of jokes we're getting here. But yeah, I mean, I guess I am glad that Nambalungi was the one who scares off the general. Because yeah, then it is just like fully. That's why there's no weight behind it was just a metaphor. Like, obviously we're making fun of them for being white saviors when, you know, at the very end of the musical they just do white saviorism. So
white saviors, it works.
I totally would feel the exact same way if that's the version I had watched. But the fact that at the end she is the one telling them the truth and then also the one that's saving the village felt like this is the right character for these behaviors. The Ugandan elders, including the general, go door to door with the new Book of Arnold. And that's how our musical ends.
I thought Tomorrow is a Latter Day is a pretty good song.
Yeah. I thought it was a good ending.
Yeah. So I think that you are right, Michael, to be like, we should talk about this, because I really do think that the version you watched is a much more interesting, like, I'm much more willing to like read that charitably, because of the ways in which black actors and writers were able to make changes to the script. But yeah,
it also,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it also sounds like it makes a more cohesive narrative. Of if that's like what you're looking for, because like Aaron and I think are both pretty not pumped about the ending twist because it feels very unearned. But like the differences Michael has described I don't think that problem would hit me nearly as hard.
The thing is that Trey Parker and Matt Stone are just like not that incredible at writing. And like I think that just having other people make changes, like to script doctor their shit, probably aside from all the necessary changes to racial depictions, like I think that the people who changed the script were probably just like better writers.
They're just like, hey, remember how we're supposed to be like white saviors don't work and are bad? And they're like, well, maybe we shouldn't have that work in the play.
Well, like, also, like, just straight up, like, the first act that I saw, like, very little actually happens.
Oh my god,
like,
nothing happens!
Yeah.
It is a very slow first act. We don't get, like, the actual main conflict is set up, but it was also set up in the first, like, couple songs. So, like, there's no narrative momentum in the first act in a way that I think is, like, a little bit embarrassing for a show that won 9 Tonys. Like, come on, let's pick up the pace, people. Hiya.
Yeah, and I think that, like, frankly, the difference in the agency of the actual villagers is maybe what would be the difference of me saying, let's watch this and review it and talk about it versus not. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, the fact that they're a bit more involved in the plot and there's a little bit more, I don't know, like, I have a subreddit with some of the
Yes, I just opened up the same page, the same Reddit.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Like, Nabulungi originally uses a typewriter to send a text, and in the show, she's actually using an iPad and talking about, like, Facebook, and, like, there's a lot of jokes about, like, Facebook and, like, misinformation and how, like, people are commenting things, and it's never, she's dumb. It's always like, oh my god, social media is literally killing us.
Yeah, there is no social media reference in the ones that we saw.
I think that also is not, like, terrible, because it was, 2012? Like, I think Facebook was very different 10 years ago.
Right, like, we weren't worried about them influencing elections yet. There were some racist lines that were cut, which I'm grateful. I Am Africa got a facelift, which I'm also very grateful for. Like we mentioned, Nabulungi fighting off the general. Villagers are fleshed out a little bit more. I think that could have continued, but that's just me. There were line changes made. And, I just think, like, this is definitely something that we should give some awareness to, of, like, okay, they could have pulled the plug on this show or just run it like normal. And this is why I think sometimes public bullying gets you what you need.
Woke leftists made a piece of media more coherent.
Woke moralists strike again. Yeah.
Got him.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think all those changes are definitely things that would have improved the experience of watching the show. But, like, that's the thing I was talking about with my wife afterwards, which is, like, I don't know that you can tell a story that has a majority group go help a marginalized group, and that not be a, not, even if, assuming that the majority group is a white, if the protagonists are white, like, I don't know that you can have a story that's not a white savior narrative, if your protagonists are from the majority group. Like, this is a thing. I was writing a book last year that was like, okay, what if humans went to, outer space, and there were a bunch of moths, and the humanoid moths, needed help, or were getting, oppressed by the humans for stupid sci-fi reasons, whatever. And a problem that I came up with was like, oh, I'm doing white saviorism, right? Because the problem is my main characters are helping the minority characters, and like, it is very difficult to do that, and also if your point of view characters, the people that you spend the most time with, are not the people in the marginalized group, and I ended up just I'm not working on that book anymore because I was like, I think my narrative is inherently flawed. I think I can't do that, and I'm sure there are examples of it. I'm sure someone has done it because human history and writing is so vast, but I think it is. I think that's a very difficult thing to do, and I certainly don't think Book of Mormon gets away from. I don't think it's not a white savior narrative.
Just real quick, I'm just gonna. You made Mothman an alien.
Yeah, because people love sexy Mothman.
No. You're right. You're correct. Yeah, I'm with you. I think we keep that part. All right.
Right.
Yeah, we'll talk about how we can make that sexy moth a bigger component of our lives later.
Listen, I have 60,000 words of that script done. We can do something with it.
How much of it is just sexy moths? Because I think we can do something here. Paranormal romance is a poppin' section.
It's actually not that much sexy moths. It's a lot more archaeology, if I'm being honest.
I'll ghostwrite it. It'll be all sexy moths at the end.
Definitely. That's what I should actually do.
I found a Twitter thread with someone who actually watched the reopening and just took note of every change that he noticed. And so I'm going to drop it in the chat and we can share it with our crew. But like, all of these feel like things that do make a different viewing experience. Like, I'm reading some of these and I'm like, they said what?
Yep. There's some real bad lines in there that, I'm glad got cut. I think it probably improved the experience overall and did not poison your particular well. But yeah, like, I think the unfortunate truth is this is not the most racist thing we've viewed on our show. I think God's Not Dead, almost all of them are far more racist than this.
Yes.
Because they are sincere instead of being like semi-satirizing. And also, it's not the most racist musical I've seen. Ragtime, for the same reason, in that it is like, we're going to do white saviorism, but it's going to be completely sincere, right? Is still more racist than this, right? Because, like, you at least know with, like, the Trey Parker and Matt Stone, like, well, it's going to be, offensive, and they're going to be doing some real edgelord humor, but, like, they don't actually believe it, as, they're libertarians. Like, who the fuck knows what they believe? But, like...
I'm sure they have opinions on the age of consent.
Yeah, unfortunately. But like that's the thing, right? Is that I think it is a much greater condemnation of the rest of the people that shoveled Tonys onto this thing than it is necessarily Trey Parker and Matt Stone, because like they're doing the same shit. They've always been doing the same shit, but like
this thing also won a Grammy.
Jesus.
Yeah,
it's halfway to an EGOT.
Cool.
The Book of Mormon is halfway to an EGOT, and Bible Boys can't even get one sponsorship from a sex toy company. What the fuck is wrong with the world?
I mean, I do need us to at least ego. Like, come on.
We'll get there.
What's our TV show about?
It's just 30 minutes of this. We're real lazy about it. We don't even go the McElroys thing where we like go to our hometown, our collective hometown, and hang out. No, it's just the camera's pointed at us while we silently watch a movie, and then the next episode is us talking about it. It's very bad. It doesn't work.
I think it's like Only Murders in the Building situation where we make a show about the show that we're making.
That would actually kick ass.
That would.
Sorry to give us genuine ideas.
Oh, that's actually really good.
I want to be played by Steve Martin.
I want to be played by Martin Short.
Well, I want to be played by Selena Gomez, so this really works out.
And we did it, boys.
All right, should we rate this thing?
I suppose so. Let me pull up my Pope list.
I'm going to give this one half of the Lego Bible because it's actually going to air.
That's true. This isn't one of our lost episodes. I'm gonna give this a Benedict the Ninth. Not the bottom. Not, I'm saving that for a special day, but it's pretty darn close.
The bottom was my nickname in college.
Shut the fuck up. God damn you.
I think I have to give this a solid 3 out of 5 missions are racist because, come on now, we should know better. It's 2022. Don't we know that this is just bad vibes? But the reason it's 3 out of 5, it could be worse, and I know this because it was.
That is extremely true.
Aaron and I are painfully aware of how worse it could be.
Oh, Christ. When we are not trying to redeem the good name of the Book of Mormon, where can we be found on the internet?
I am at Green History on Twitter.
I'm at Michael's Diamonds on Twitter.
I'm at AaronSXL on Twitter, where I tweet about tabletop RPGs, health policy, and writing. I was also on Holy Happy Hour Batman, a show by Benjamin Wallace, who is a tabletop RPG enthusiast, but also an Episcopal priest. And I talked about Bible Boys and the stuff we do here. So if you want to get more of that kind of conversation, me and Ben had a great talk about the God's Not Dead trilogy, or trilogy plus one, which was great. And I talked about my game Forsaken. I also do another podcast that's at Mortified Pod. Me and Layla talk about other media. We just released an episode on All Systems Red, the Martha Wells Murderbot book. But we also did an episode last week on Spy Family, the anime about an assassin, a spy, and a psychic all living together. That was really fun. So yeah, if any of that sounds like it'd be up your alley, please go and check that out. But if you were brought to tears by our graphic conversations and ultimate condemnation of the Book of Mormon, just remember that it is okay to cry because even Jesus wept. We'll see you all next time.